Welcome to the Deering Acting Studio podcast, where we dive deep into the craft of acting.
All right, my name is Matthew Deering, here with John Luke Grubb, Jason Jackson, and special guest today is Nancy Rossman.
Yeah.
Welcome, Nancy. Very happy to have you. So we're gonna dive right into acting today, and I wanted to ask Nancy. She's in and has been in the master class and audited this last month. What was a takeaway that you had from this last master class that maybe we can talk deeper into?
Well, I think the most important thing from all the audits that I've done with you and watching, and which I finally now get it, is just being patient as an actor, being waiting for, not rushing into a line, maybe waiting for the laughter to die down, or maybe even waiting for the laughter to come. Just patience, all in caps, in so many ways.
Yeah, I like to use this term. I used to say this a lot. Find it. Wait in the scene until you find the answer, because the answer is always there if you look deep enough, and eventually you're going to find what you're supposed to do next without trying to put your own willpower on top of something. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. I have this little joke, my wife and I, with our son Jack, that especially when he was like 2, because he's super smart, so he would say things but you couldn't really understand what he was saying, and I'd be like, just trust me, he's right, we just have to figure out why he's right. Wait till you find it. So yeah, what about you guys? You have an example or something else from masterclass?
Well, just in class in general, a big thing that I've been bringing into improv especially, and in script, but I'm seeing it in improv a lot, is the patience, the waiting, patience. You have to wait till you find the answer, and it's just like the last few weeks, all of the improv has just been stellar, really. And Jason here yesterday, I was talking about him and how awesome he's gotten, and he's just so ready to take everything on. He's patient with his scene partner. He's patient with everything that's going on in the scene, and it's actually made his acting rise.
I've been hearing that about both of you, actually,
mm-hmm.
that there's been a significant jump in the work that you're doing in the other classes, and perhaps that was spillover from some of the rehearsals that the two of you are doing.
No doubt. Absolutely no doubt. Yep.
So there's this interesting thing about this patience where sometimes I hear from actors and they get confused or scared because, and I'd be one of these, where you get on stage and you're worried about doing nothing, right? You're worried about the silence. Is that something you could?
The Meisner's been working huge for me because now I'm searching my scene partner for the reaction.
Good. So that's the answer, because it can be scary if you feel like you've got nothing going on, if you're just coming up there and being silent, right? So there's this thought of being patient, but really you're not ever doing nothing. If you're doing nothing, you're doing it wrong. So you should be actively listening, actively trying to find what that answer is. As soon as you go inside yourself, you become introverted and a little selfish in your own ego. That's when you get stuck in that silence, and then it becomes a bad thing. But the scenes actually won't go slower necessarily if you sit and listen and wait and find that right answer. Sometimes they even cook quicker.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the reasons that improv last night worked really well is simply that Meisner thing of, I would get the scene from how that person acted genuinely, instead of just being like, how does this logistically fit with this?
Yeah.
And I would be initially just like, do they come in smiling? Because then we're doing something fun. If they don't come in smiling, then we're not doing something fun.
Yeah, and it's just if you're being patient enough to wait for your scene partner to give you the answer, essentially, versus just being like, oh, I gotta take it, I gotta hold on to it and not let go for dear life and control it. But when you're just getting everything from your scene partner, that's right, you're just waiting.
Those new students we had last night were pretty impressive, really, for the first time, I gotta say, weren't they?
They were awesome. Yeah, they picked it up really quick. Their scenes were awesome, very directable. I'm really excited for our current program right now.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nancy, have you taken any improv classes?
I did. That's where I started.
Okay.
I was 6 months in improv, and then I told JL I wanted to switch over to script.
Sure.
And I did. I learned a lot from it, but for everything that I want to do, I wanted to be in the scene and dialogue and everything that we're doing now on Monday night. But
Yeah.
it probably is where everybody should start. Maybe I'm
Yeah.
not sure.
And really, I mean, when you can, you want that to become a part of your repertoire always.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you understand the connection between the improv and the script?
Yeah.
Yeah, good. All right, Nancy, now's the time. You get
Yeah.
to ask any acting question, something that's something that you're working on or that you saw happening in the class that you'd like us to expand on a bit.
Well, I think the biggest thing I saw in class as just a problem for me, it could be just a problem for me. Could be I have bad hearing. But I thought that many of the actors could have had more voice. I thought it was hard to hear, and I didn't know if it was because of the they have a mic on, whatever. And then, like, I don't know. And I was sitting in the front row, so I worried, gee, how do you know when it's enough voice? Because if you didn't say anything, then it must be my problem, my hearing, or whatever. So how do you know when it's... Because I've seen you instruct, and you'll go way back to the back of the room, and you'll say voice, as they're going through their scene, if you can't hear them. So I'm just curious about that.
Well, that's a good question. So when it comes to me, the first thing to know is that I try to attack the biggest issue first.
Oh.
And so sometimes it's the voice, and then sometimes if the scene is just off completely, I might have to work on something else that's not the voice. And so just because I don't mention something, whether it be voice or something else, doesn't mean it's not wrong. It just means I think that what that actor needs to learn right now, the most important thing for them is whatever it is that I bring up.
Okay.
So
That makes sense.
if you can't hear, their voice is not enough. And then to answer your question as far as for you as an actor, how you know, this is a great example with us here on the mics. You see how when I'm talking right now, I can hear myself, no problem.
Yes.
And then when I start to talk like this, I can't hear myself anymore, right?
Right.
So that's how I know that my mouth is in the right spot for this podcast. And if I'm not paying attention and I just sort of start talking anywhere I want, then I know the audience isn't going to hear what I'm saying, right?
Right.
So on the stage, it's the same idea where I should be able to hear the reverberation of my own voice bouncing off the back of the room. So that's why as an actor, you should come and you should practice in the room, and you should feel the space, feel how big it is, because every space is going to be different,
Right.
and have different vocals and what am I looking? The word I'm looking for.
Acoustics.
Yeah,
Acoustics.
acoustics. Thank you. They're gonna have different acoustics. So you walk up and you project your voice, and you should hear you back.
Okay.
If I can hear me back, that means my voice is hitting the back of the room, bouncing off the wall and coming back to my ear. If that's happening, then everyone all the way to the last seat can hear me. If it's not happening, they can't.
Okay.
Yeah. So that would be the answer. That's a great question.
Yeah.
You guys have anything to add on voice, JL?
Well, no, just actually one small thing, especially when you talked about the space. Like we have 2 different classrooms, so in that room on the other side, it's different shape. There's different things in there. The sound tends to reverberate differently, and so it just you hear it bounce all around. And then when you get in here, you have to project even more so because the room is actually bigger. There's more stuff in here to absorb it. So you have to always be conscious and listening for that. And it doesn't happen overnight. You know, I work with a few students who ask me, like, how do I get my voice better right away? And I'm like, you got to work on it all the time.
And that's something you worked on for quite a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I still
Really?
do. I still do, yeah. Like
John Luke used to
I
teach
used to
like
kinda-
this.
Yeah, and I'd be like kind of down here all the time.
Greatest
That's
teacher in the world, but nobody
that's where
can
my-
understand anything you say.
This is where I live.
So quiet.
Well, he fixed that.
yes, and I'm always working on it too. So it's something that I usually don't have to consciously think about unless like I know I'm talking.
I hear you turn it up
quietly.
every once in a while.
And I will have to turn it up if I'm like, I know I'm not speaking where I should. So that's just something that you just do all the time.
Yeah, and then there's other theater. So obviously this is a black box, right? It's built really for a professional classroom setting for a 100-seat show. But it's not a huge theater, and there are theaters twice this size, 3 times this size, and more. And so in every theater, you have to go in and find what is that space, and there's going to be more voice, less voice. In the same way I was trailing my voice off the microphone like this and coming back, you can do the same thing where you overpower a room, and that's not good either. So this would be overpowering
Yeah.
the room, and it's super annoying, and no one likes to hear that voice.
It does sound annoying, and even
it's
just that half
terrible.
a second, you're like, eh.
Yeah, you're like, stop talking. Exactly. And so you'll hear me even critiquing some actors where I say, tone it down a little bit. You're speaking at such a big volume that it's distracting. And so it's about how do I bring that volume that's the right volume for the room, find that space, live there, and then be truthful and honest in that exact zone. And so, I mean, it's a difficult thing to do, but you can do it with practice.
I walk around the building, and I'll almost say my lines aggressively with like lots of addiction and really loud when I walk around the backside. But it really works the lines into my head.
Yeah. And depending on the play you're working on, it could get you arrested too, right?
Would
Yeah, they're like,
Who's the crazy guy?
telling them. I've had that thought, especially there's apartments over there too. So there's like a lot of people who could be sitting on their balcony, just like,
Oh,
he looks
yeah.
dressed nice, but definitely crazy. Just walking around talking to himself, ranting.
I used to love doing this thing where if I was working on an accent or something, I would go, this was when I lived in New York, I would go to some place like a bar or Subway or something and just be the character completely until I got caught. So let's say I'd show up in the Irish accent and I'd sit down and I'd be like, hey, how are you, lass? And we'd start talking and it'd be all right, And then finally they'd ask a question that I didn't know, well, which part in that part of
the Doves
Ireland?
of Wales or something.
Right. And I'd be like, well, goodbye. And I'd go home and I'd go back and do more work and more research to figure out who would this person be so I don't run into those, those problem areas.
So I have my standardized patient gig for a year, 2 deals a month. No, yeah, 2 to 3 deals a month. And I have a script, and this is at A.T. Still University.
And see, I don't know what any of this means. Do you know what that means?
It's an osteopathic hospital and university. And so they have auditions every year. They hire 50 actors, and you have to audition twice, and then you have to be vetted because it's a university and you're working with young people, interns. Anyway, they give you a script and an effect, and they're being taped. They come in one at a time in 30-minute increments, and they have 14 minutes to figure out what's wrong with you, if they can.
wow.
And so I probably could. I think
Throw in
that's
an
a great
accent.
idea. Yeah,
That's the
Throw in an
perfect. That's
accent.
the perfect spot for you
Yeah.
to just practice being
And-
someone you're not.
Yeah, and then I was telling Jason this, and JL, I work for the Adventure Spy Games. So this is a team building company, and they go into, say, Dignity Health. That was my last gig. And they create, this is trying to get people to talk to each other and learn how to communicate again, because everybody texts and emails, and they don't
It's
talk.
amazing that you
And-
had to know this was coming, huh?
Yeah, and so and this company gets big money for doing this, and they hire 6 actors. And again, you have a script, but it's small. Like last time, I was the mysterious cat lady stationed outside Starbucks, and they came up and they had to give me a code word, Elvis, and then they would ask me questions, and I could give them clues like the boss has lost a lot of money lately. And they go, do you know how? I go,
Oh my
not a
gosh.
clue, but I hear Trixie knows something, but be careful of her. She's working both sides of the street. And, you know, anyway, I mean, these are all really small gigs, but they pay right away. It's fun.
Absolutely.
No,
You
I-
could practice. I never thought about doing an accent, though. I like this. I
hear
don't
people
know.
say that they don't do acting, or they're too old to act, and it's like you and Richard are the people I see getting a ton of work.
Well, Richard has an advantage because of how in shape he is, and he has a lot of other skills, you know, his stunt driving. He could be, at his age, he could be a dad, he could be a granddad, he could be a bank president, whereas, you know, a woman
Well,
at
and
my
I'm going to tell you
age-
something else too, though.
What?
His other advantage is he works his tail off.
He does work his tail off, yes, all the time, yes.
He's here. He's
Yeah.
here 2, 3, 4 times a week doing private lessons, doing
Yeah.
all the classes. I mean,
Yeah.
he is in.
Yeah.
And you see the things he's done in his life, and really the things you've done too, Nancy. You're very successful as well. It isn't about your age. That's the thing. Because we could all die tomorrow. That's the truth, right? So you want to go out and you want to have fun. You want to do jobs, of course, and you want to get better. I think that, you know, the key to life is to improving. And so when you see what Richard's done, his history, he raced cars, right? Well, he raced cars to the end to where he won a couple championships.
Yeah,
and
he
then-
raced at a very real level.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so now he decided to act, and so he's acting at a very real level, and he trains at a very real level. And so he didn't see any of the success for years. He
That's
didn't get an
true.
agent for a year, you know, a year and a couple months or something. And so it's a matter of, in my opinion, it's at any age, who's willing to work harder than the next guy, and who will really just stay at it, because quitting is the thing that stops most people.
And you think it's probably just quitting, and when anybody realizes this is going to take years, then the foresight just goes away with some people.
Well, it's with anything, you know. You get disheartened, and you get you know, a little discouraged. You don't get something right away, and so you move on to the next thing instead of sticking it out.
I guess when you go in for an engineering degree, you're like, I know this is going to take me 4 years. I know what I'm getting. Whereas I think when you go into acting, you might not realize
Yeah,
there's
totally.
that much to it.
But think about this with the engineering degree. So you get through that, right? And then how many people don't get through it? There's a lot of people that go 3 years and then quit, or just can't quite make the grade. Same thing with medicine, and I mean any other profession that's really worth doing. At the end, it still takes a lot of work. And then once you become a doctor, let's just say, you still have to re-up on your education.
Yeah,
And,
right.
I mean, I've spent my whole life watching my dad sit on a lazy boy chair, reading and learning about medicine after he was already a doctor.
to keep his license
It was
current and
grueling.
such.
Yeah, he was always on the cutting edge of knowing what was going on, and there's a reason why he's a very well respected doctor, because he works his butt off at that thing. So I really just think acting is no different. And you take someone like Nancy, it's not surprising to me that she's working, because she's tenacious. I mean, if you know who she is, she goes
Yeah.
after what she wants, and she gets it.
I just hear the general public or people I walked into always kind of say, "Oh, I'm too old for that," or
Yeah.
blah, blah blah, and I'm like, "You're 35." Like,
But you're either too old, you're too young,
Gave up already.
you're too skinny, you're too fat, you know.
yeah,
I mean, that's the truth. And so there's always an excuse not to do something. Or you can just decide, I'm going to do this, and I don't really care what the world thinks. I'm just going to, you know, elbow my way in here.
I had a writing teacher, Dorothy Allison, that I loved, that I studied with for about 5 years. And she was really hard. You would have loved her. She was that kind of hard teacher. And she gave us a talk on day 4 of a 8-day, all-day, whatever, boot camp. And she looked around the room and she said, "So everybody take a look around the room. So there's 15 of you. 15. Only one of you will probably have success in writing. Write a book that, you know, does something." And so later, and I was first of all, again, I was the oldest person in the class. I was 55 at the time. And I was the only one, maybe half the class had an MFA. They'd won contests and whatever, and this was my second year into this. And so at lunchtime, she said, "Did you feel bad by my speech? 1 in 15." And I went, "No." She goes, "How come?" I went, "I'm the 1 in 15, baby."
And she's published 2 books.
I was going to say, you have written 2 books.
2 books.
Yeah.
Are you gonna do another?
Yeah, I think I'm I'm toying with it. My editor in New York said she contacts me every once in a while. And she said, "I haven't heard from you. Are you still writing?" And I went, "Yeah, I'm doing this acting thing, and man, it's just I'm past my eyeballs. It's just so hard." And she said, "I think that you should write about that. I think you should do another memoir and write about the modeling and the acting and what it's like, and I think people would love to read it." So I'm thinking about it.
Good.
January 1st, I got to get going.
All right.
Yeah,
Do it.
yeah, I think.
Can't
All
wait
right,
to
so
read
let's
it.
end here if we could. Nancy, we would love to hear, do you have any advice for us?
Any advice? You mean as the studio?
I'm talking about life.
Oh, well, I think that the thing that I have learned is the things that have given me the most joy are trying new things that scare me a little, because there's excitement, and then you get over the fear, and it becomes, I am now comfortable with being uncomfortable. I really am. I don't get nervous coming. I used to, man, I wouldn't sleep on Sunday night because I had to come to jail's class on Monday, and I'm thinking he's going to give me something hard to do that he wouldn't even tell us what we're going to do. I don't like that. And then I just thought, shoot, he'll still like me. So it doesn't matter if, I'll learn something. So I think like you said, and like Jason said, you're never too old to learn something new, and it really will. That's the thing that will keep you young your whole life. Trying new stuff that you never thought. I never thought I would ever do this. I didn't think I would write either, really. So.
Words
Nice
of wisdom
job.
here from a wonderful actress, a very valued member of our studio family, and a
Thank you.
beautiful person too, Nancy Rossman.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank
right.
you, guys.
That's our podcast.
It's great.